Okay, so I got finished. I made a recording actually, and I was talking about, I was so overwhelmed, and I was talking about what happened to me after I left church, and about the recording that I made previously, and I made one, and it was talking about fulfillment. And if you haven't looked at that one, definitely look at fulfillment. Um, So I leave out of church, and I noticed that the sermon. Well, when I go into church, they having their praise and worship, and that was cool. Well, actually, I came a little bit earlier because I thought I was going to the third service, because they have like different services, and it's just like, okay. But the good thing is, it's not that long. But I'm understanding that sometimes you do have to stay in the presence of God, and I had just made a video talking about um, don't make um, don't don't get really well, not don't get upset, but don't let your obstacles that are in life deter you to say that you're a failure. What looks on the outside as a failure might be actually success and training you to something else. So I went in there, and lo and behold, the person that's delivering the message to us is talking exactly about that. Like, uh, don't get weary in that, and how you need to stay in the presence of God, and how, some people were really into it, and they was really close to God, and this is how they were surviving. And the reason why they haven't gotten to the promised land is because they somehow got deterred out of the presence of God. And he was talking about the distractions that come around in everyday life, and people, places, and things that come, as distractions, and how you need to stay focused. And it was giving you methods on that. And it was talking about, praying and getting in your word, of course. And what did it say? It was reading the word, of course, pray. A lot of people don't pray. And what was it? Acknowledging that it was God's design and not yours. And I want to say that we are all created. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. We are all created um, for a special plan and purpose. And if you really believe that, and you believe that, you know, uh, God designed your life, you know that you were created before the foundation of the earth, that you, it doesn't matter. It's already been said and done. Your life is said and done. All we're doing is walking through it. We're walking this life. It's already been created for us. So, excuse me. We shouldn't get hesitant. I'm always yarning. I don't understand what's going on every time I make a video. Yes, I do. I'll talk about that too. But how you shouldn't get fearful, even though that's human nature. We have to retract and go back to what God's word says, and get in that flow. And that's how you stay in the presence of God. You go back on his word. But not only that, the last one was that you go to, you fellowship. And that was one thing that I had a deep, hardship about. And God has been talking to me about um, how like he continuously strips these people away from me, and I'm like still trying to go after them, because I'm like, well, maybe they'll come out and they'll be this later and they'll be that later, and it's like, no, God is saying no. They were there for a time, a purpose, a season, and for a reason, and that purpose and that time and that season and that reason has ended. So now I'm stripping them away from you to make you come into the new. But I'm not gonna bring into the new until you clear out all the old. So that's what I had to do, and it hurts a lot, but I know that when God fulfills it, it's gonna be a lot way better. And I know that if I'm going through this, a lot of other people are going through this. He was also talking about that wilderness. Being open to and following and hearing God's voice. Sometimes we got to tame our flesh. I have a issue, with trying to tame my flesh. Oh my goodness, I love to eat, and not only that, the enemy is seeing that. So that's why I was like, okay, I gotta fast and pray, because I'm coming across some things that, I can't do on my own. Not only that, but I've been instructed to do so. And yeah. So, yeah, it was just confirmation. Is that my bike? That is my bike. My bike got stolen, like, I want to say about a month ago. I was so upset because I like to cycle, and that's probably one of the main reasons why I am very, very sad. But yeah, I didn't get it. I didn't get my bike back, even though the complex that I was at, because I had parked it at this apartment complex right above the camera, which they record everything. They said they couldn't go and you know show me the footage or give the police the footage, and I was just like, how is that even possible when you guys actually recorded? You didn't erase that, but I just prayed, gave it to God, and let it go. I'll get another bike, but it was just like. So, yeah, that's it. It brought me back to that. Sometimes in life, we get so distracted because we see other people prospering, and we see like, why is their thing going this way, or um, uh, oh, excuse me, and I'm still down here. Why is my thing this way? And you have to remember, it's in God's timing, and God is not a dummy. Okay, God is not gonna give you something that you are not equipped to handle. Think about with Moses and the staff when he had to hold it horizontal and he was holding it like up, the whole time. God knew that he wasn't going to be strong enough to hold it that for that long time, and so he assigned two people to hold it up for him on each end to assist him. They didn't take over. They didn't say, "Well, I want this power. It's for me." No, they knew the assignments and to say this needs to be done. So remember that when you go and come across these issues. Um, Another thing he talked about, which really hit home for me, was talking about how the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy, and that if you look at it, every time the enemy tries to attack, the first thing excuse me, the first time he tries to do that is when you're trying to elevate, when you're trying to do something else. So he'll try to tempt you with something. Then after that, he'll try to curse down what is already given to you, because if the enemy knows that he comes to kill, steal, and destroy, but he has no power, no leverage, he can't take away from what you have. So what the enemy will do and he'll say, start talking to you in your head and make you second guess things. Is this really what I'm supposed to be going after? Is this really what I'm supposed to design for? Is this really what is happening? And yeah, so then you'll cast it down and say, well, this must not be from God. This is just too good to be true, or this is that. So um, we have to be, well, I know that for myself. We have to be aware of that. The third thing was he will give you something that you already have, that is already assigned to you, and tell you, if you do, and give you a condition. If you do so and so, then you will have this. And a perfect example of this is when the devil tested Jesus on the mount. Okay, when he went on the mountaintop and he was fasting for 40 days and 40 nights, the first thing that he did was say, um, he told him to, oh my goodness, I'm getting a brain fart. Oh my God. Oh my God. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, God. Thank you. He told he told him, that um he would tempt him. That's what he did. He tempted him. And he Jesus said, "You should not tempt me. Thou should not tempt the Lord. It is written." Then he said, bring himself. Yeah, he said, bring himself down. What else did he do? He made him think like, tried to make him second guess. Oh, well, if you this, then why are you going through this? If you cast yourself down. And he's like, it is written. And he went and based it off the word. Then a third time, he was telling him if he gave him a condition, like if you bow down to me, I'll give you all of this. And it's like, us looking at it now, that doesn't even look like a real temptation, but God was showing us in the flesh what is going to happen, because he could have did that, but since God is in decency and in order, he puts his word above his name, so he did everything according out of the law and according out of the word, because the word is law, it's the true law. And because he is the Lord, he follows his precepts. He said he put his word above his name, so he had to follow that word, so yeah, and it was already given to him. How can you give somebody something that was already theirs? That's like you steal it and give it back. Or let me tell you, he couldn't even steal it because it was never his to give. It was never his to give, So just remember that the enemy comes, he's gonna come after that way. You're gonna get attacked that way, and when you're doing something good, it's gonna be ostracized. People are going to look at you different. They're going to say things. On the outside, it's going to look like, and people didn't know, when Jesus was fasting, for 40 days, 40 nights, he was getting power. He was getting revelation. It looked like all heck had, if you look on the outside, he probably looked sick. When you fast for a long time, sometimes you don't look as all, like you're doing. You're isolating yourself. It looks like on the outside that you are failing because you're not out socializing. Jesus wasn't out, parading around everyone. He was in isolation time. He was trying to get closer to God, so he was forsaking all others to go into this marriage, into this bondship with the Father, and getting more clarity with him. And that's what we do, and I can say this for my life. During this time, it got me closer to the Lord, which I needed the most. I thought that I needed so much, but what I really needed was to get a closer relationship with God. And when you are close to God, and when you are God's, okay, he chastises his own, okay? Like, he's not going to let the enemy go and overtake you unless you just will yourself over to him and you forsake God and you say, I no longer want, And even then, he knows your heart, your heart has to be really willed towards that. And plus, he chooses who he chooses, okay? Just like that. But he chastises his own. So, when we go and do something wrong or anything like that, he disciplines us. Not only that, sometimes when you discipline yourself when you are trying to get closer to him, because it deals with discipline. It's not what you see on the outside. It's with prayer, fasting, and supplication. Adhering to his word, not looking at on the outside. I remember when I was going through my wilderness part, and I'm still in that process or whatever. But at the beginning, it looked like all heck was breaking loose. It was so much, and it felt so terrible. It looked so terrible. But one thing that I knew that I had, and God had already revealed to me, it was the wilderness. But one thing I did have was the Lord on my side. I knew it because I had joy. That was one thing. Out of all the chaos that I was having, all of it, I had joy, like unspeakable joy deep down inside of me. And that's what you want to have and take up root. A lot of people are going to look at you when you go through this, because God is raising up his people to do various things, not only just in ministry, but he's pouring his spirit out on the earth, okay? And when you go through these times, yes, he's going to isolate you, okay? I don't care what nobody says. He isolates you. In order to get elevated, you get isolated, okay? You can't do the same thing that everyone's doing. You're not going to be able to say the same things. You're not going to do the same things that you used to do. If somebody tells you that, then they really have not been changed. And I don't give a care how what they're doing in ministry. I don't care if they've been in ministry 12,000 years. Okay, I don't care. When you go, it's always new levels to God. It's more levels to the kingdom of darkness. But when you get deeper, and every day we try to go better and higher. You're you're giving up more. You're going if you're trying to go higher and higher. You have to give up something. So um, remember that you're gonna give more. You're gonna have to give away some of the everyday desires that you want to do, the everyday fleshly desires. And people are like, okay, when we think about that, like, okay, I gave away. I'm sorry, had to go. Okay, had to make sure my car was locked. But you have to give away your everyday like desires. For me, people are like, oh, stop fornicating, stop, and they talk about the seven deadly sins and gluttony and stuff like that. Okay, well, you can give up that, but then after that, when you go closer and closer to God, He starts winging off more that He wants you to do. He never gives you more than you can bear, but He has things inside of us that we have to let go and to grasp the things on the other side. Um, so we have to be very, 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 very vigilant, very, very mindful of it. You can't go like for one thing, like I learned that I could not, and I stopped doing this anyway. I stopped going to like clubs like a minute, and what scared me for the most part was with the club. God started revealing and started giving me gifts to the point where I started noticing things that I was like, no, I know I didn't see this. Like, and it was like, yeah, God was, and I was like, you know what, I don't really want to do that anymore. I don't even want to be around that crowd anymore because even though, and to this point, I want to tell you this, like, I used to like drink occasionally or whatever. It wasn't like heavy drinking, It was a casual drinking, going out. We'll have like 2 or 3 drinks, whatever. And then there was a part in my life where God just said, "Look, this is not for you." And I mean, like when I say this is not for you, He was just like this. It was real soft. It wasn't like a big boisterous voice. It was just like this is not for you. So I was like, okay. And then I tried to start drinking, and it just didn't taste the same. It just wasn't. So I was just like, okay, well, maybe that's my cue, because my mom doesn't drink. My father does drink. He used to drink a lot, But my grandparents, they don't really drink a lot, either. So that was like, well, I have one set of grandparents. They didn't drink at all. So I was just like, well, maybe it's just not in me, But I would still go out and I would have like sodas. And my grandmother used to tell me how she used to do that too when they used to go out and sing before she started singing gospel. Before she had went to, because she used to sing for VJ Records, and that's like before Motown and stuff like that. And how she would freaking, she wasn't a drinker, but everyone else was. So when they went out to these places to go and sing, this was before she started singing gospel. So when they started to sing, she would go and have like a cream soda, a ginger ale, and just sit there and still have a good time with everybody. And she's so happy and bubbly. People used to think that she's got to be on something because she's so happy. But my grandmother was like, on my mother's side, was one of those people that was like full of life, And I have that same kind of energy. I want grandchildren that have the same kind of crazy energy. It's just I can't even explain it. I know it's the power of God, but other than that, I can't explain it. I think that's self-explanatory anyway, but some people don't believe that. So there you go. But anyhow, so I freaking as I'm watching, I'm looking at people. You see, like it's a whole different ballgame when you start seeing people who are intoxicated, and you're like, is this how I used to be? Is this how And then I was like, man, I'm not gonna judge, but it's kind of annoying, whatever. And this one day, I started seeing how this. I'm gonna tell the truth, A lot of people are gonna say you're nuts. whatever. I'm gonna tell the truth because I know if I seen it, other people have seen it. I went, and I kid you not, it was a Saturday night. I was actually supposed to be preparing for mission, because we were having a mission day program in the morning. But I was like, I'm ahead of time. I'm gonna get up early. I'm not staying out that late with them anyway. About 2 o'clock, I'm going home. 9 o'clock, I will be at church, and everything is fine. Okay, so we're at this bar, and a friend is having a party. I literally saw this thing jump inside of someone. Like, when I say jump inside of them to the point, like, the thing was looking, the face was looking angry, and it jumped inside of them. Like, as soon as they kept drinking, it was more like it just started seeping in. Like, it jumped in them. Then the next person, it started seeping in, like, right next. It just started hopping from each other, from one person to the next. And I mean, like, every person that was getting mad it looked like it was hopping out of them. Then the other person was like, I don't know why I got so angry. Why did I? And it was just like, you know what? Can't do it. Can't do it. And it's another instance where another instance where I should have been in the place. It was crazy. So, yeah. So that was my whole transition with that. So I was like, I don't think I'm gonna go and do that scene. That's just not for me. Um, so God might be doing the same thing for you. When you go through this process, you get that isolation. He strips you away from a lot of things. Like I said before, what I said before about going and getting away from people who are doing things that you used to do that was comfortable for you, and everybody was comfortable, but it's pulling you out. God will make it so uncomfortable, unbearing, that you're like, that you will see what's wrong in plain sight. So you become to repentance and just turn away from it. Like, although this is happening, this probably don't have to happen to me. I've seen it and I know better. When you know better, you got to do better. It's like, do better or die. That's it. Another thing with isolation, it looks like because you're not doing what everyone else is doing, I was considered a bum. I'm telling you, like, I worked at this job flipping burgers for a good minute. I mean, people would not give me a job. At first, I didn't have any job. Then I had a good job, and I mean, it was taken from me. I got hit in the head, lost all my hair, had linear fractures in a place in a city that's known for medical, that has a lot of stuff. Fort Wayne has a lot of stuff with medical and helping the homeless and all that. And it was to the point where since I didn't look like I was, in that area, I didn't have a drug addiction. I didn't have, issues that were visible. I didn't get the help. I didn't get the help. People would turn on me like, well, she's just trying to be lazy, and that just was not it. If you knew how many applications and some of the people who like literally didn't think that I was telling the truth, like literally, someone was following me, and then after they started seeing myself, they had no other, but believe me, believe me, they was like, well, maybe it's because you got a bad record. No, I got a bad record. I think it's nothing. Okay, it was just God's plan and God's design. And I know it's a bigger purpose in my life. Okay, so as I'm going through this, people are calling me out of my name. When I get back on my feet, I learned to be humble. I don't have all the stuff. Yes, I probably could have afforded it at that time, but I had something to do. I had a big call for my life, and I had something to contribute. And me not dressing up and getting the latest name brand, because my mind has been renewed through this time. God is showing me all the things that, even though I properly save, and it is not wrong to get things that are pleasing and pleasing to you, as long as it doesn't affect you or hinder you from God. But he started showing me a lot of things that I could have done better, and it changed my mindset on how I controlled myself, how I presented myself, how do I take care of my finances, I did not go around and, just hurry up and got a wardrobe. As a matter of fact, when I got out of homelessness and all that, the first thing people thought that I was gonna buy a bed, everything, because I was trying to get help that way to go get one. I ended up getting one. When I got hit by the car and got the job, somebody stole it while I was in the hospital. Stole all of it. So anywho, so the next time when this happened and I was able to get back on my feet, I used by myself a mattress. I just prayed and paid my tithes. I prayed and I saved every penny. I started up my business. I started up my business. I was just like, since I wasn't given a job, and I was here, I would mop floors. I took a job when I got back on my feet. I humbled myself. I took a job. I don't even think it was humble. I was just like any job. I've always been like that. I will work 2 or 3 jobs. It's nothing. I don't give a damn. You can always make more. You can always do more. But I was flipping, like I said, flipping burgers. Um, and God was supplying for me then. That's how you know you got grace. But like I said, during that isolation time, it looked like I was going through so much, like I was just so poor and ragged, and people were dropping off from me even more. People were like, "Oh, she ain't doing nothing," so they want to be away from me. So that gave me a relief. It was sad, but later on, it gave me a relief because it let go of all the extra baggage that I had, that I would have been wasting time on people who really didn't validate my opinions and my beliefs and everything, to where I can go full-fledged force into what I believed in and what my products were in, and everything else. So, yeah, so on the outside it looked like it wasn't manifesting, just like a freaking plant. Think about a tomato plant. It takes, if you're growing it, well, if you're growing a hybrid, you can do 4 days and something plant up. But if you're doing it naturally, it's like 4 to 6 weeks. You can see something up from the top, crowning from the top. So when you first plant it, the first 2 days you don't see anything. Matter of fact, you don't even see nothing. You don't even see a lot on the outside. The outside of the seed is finally, just coming off of the surface, is growing around to making its little buds to start roots. After you tilt it and plant it, and then weeks, by then you already got roots. It's taking roots, so it's growing. It's massive. But on the ooh, that's a lot of wind. But on the you don't see that. You do not see that. Oh, if they don't know anything about gardening, they don't think that the plant is even there. Some people, and I've seen that a lot. At the shelter that I'm at, we grow tomatoes, and a lot of people will want to re-till the ground to put something else in it after 4 weeks, because they don't see anything coming out of the ground. And it's like, okay, just because this plant grew, and they were planted at the same time, and one is growing and the other one is not, doesn't mean that it's not there, it's not growing. And and then after the 6 weeks, you'll start seeing manifestations. But that's the same thing with you. A lot of people don't, when you're getting in isolation and they're burying you and you're getting in that fertile soil, you're making roots. It takes a minute to get firm, stable roots, okay? And you need those roots, because you don't want to be an instant plant. There are things called instant plants, okay, and they come up really, and they sprout fruit, and a lot of people are eating that stuff. They sprout a lot of fruit, and they're hybrid plants, and you don't really even need too much of a seed. So it's like a hybrid seed. It's not even growing. It's just gonna shoot straight up. But guess what? You cannot replant that plant because it doesn't have an original seed. It doesn't. It's just, once that plant is gone, it hasn't gotten any roots. It's just very thin little roots to grasp it in the ground, just enough to produce the fruit. Which doesn't give you the whole minerals, the whole nutrients, and all that of the fruit. Whereas a traditional plant will give you all that. It's going to take a little bit longer, but those roots are getting stronger. They're getting thicker. So when it comes up, the little bit that you see is not showing all the roots that are underneath in the ground. So Yeah, remember that. That isolation part, it is necessary. It is necessary because it builds your character, it builds your strength in that time because you're isolated. People aren't looking at you. The light isn't cast on you. And people don't think about that. The shadow is preparing you. The darkness is preparing you for that light. When those people buried you, they don't know that you were a seed. They did not know that you were a seed, okay? You were a seed and you needed that. You needed that dirt to grow, okay? I've learned that now. The years that endured this and went through it, it made me so much stronger to know that if a shaking wind comes and I lose everything, then I know where I'm secured at. I know where I'm anchored at. I don't need any fancy. And I used to be like, oh my God, I need the word. I need to praise. I need, I need to worship. And my whole thing was, I love to worship. I love to sing, man. I love to sing. But there are times when, what if my singing voice goes? What if I can't hum another note? What if my vocal cords are gone? What if or I like to jog, I like to run. What if I can't run anymore? What if God happens and God, I keep every limb, that I don't have these limbs to move? I know now I can praise Him and I still be satisfied and I'll still be okay. So, and that's what the isolation process teaches you. It teaches you don't run those valley moments. I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I should feel no evil, right? Okay, so that valley, you're walking through the valley. Do not run. That's just like that hybrid plant. You're not going to get all the benefits, you know, when you come out of learning or learning the things that you need to learn in order to go to the next level. Think about someone who has got into the music industry and they talk about that a lot. They didn't really do a lot of work. They didn't do a lot of research. They got like one hit and they was just like, I'm into it. And they just took all the things that they listened to other people and they really didn't find out who they were in the gifting. So when things started looking bad and they started getting these outcomes where their music isn't selling as much or they have to do crazy things to get the same things that they were getting before, then they're like, it's bothering them. When if you would have just took it the right way, and worked on your craft and worked on yourself, then you could have properly adjusted and been able to handle when the shifting comes, when the dark times come, during this whole isolation process. And I know you're going through it because it doesn't happen on accident. You're not listening to nothing on accident. When you go through these times, it shapes you. It builds your character. It builds your integrity, okay? That's one thing I had to deal with is my integrity because sometimes I would break. I'm one of those people. I used to be one of those people. Thank God I'm changed. I used to be like, look, God said turn the other cheek. I believe in God. I really did. I still do to a different extent, too. God, but I would say, that was a no-win when I was out here at first. When I was sitting in that car, as soon as I get out, but that's all right. I'm not going to complain about it. I won't complain. So soon as I said, I turn the other cheek. I believe in turn the other cheek. And I used to say this, okay, God said, turn the other cheek. If a man slaps you, turn the other cheek. But if he slaps you again, you get two more cheeks and you can tell him to kiss. Okay. During this process, God started showing me how do I deal with this, and then I got to a point where I thought that humility, and it started showing me humility, and I started getting to the point where I thought humility for a minute was, letting people, get away because it's like, okay, I know it's a God that reigns and rules over us, just not to let it go, but just be like, yeah, let it go and just keep going and doing it instead of what humility really was. And God taught me what humility is, which is, understanding that you can't change things, but you can still prevent yourself from being. You're supposed to use self-preservation and prevent yourself from being hurt again. You don't let the same people come into your life and wreak havoc again. You don't have to do that, and you don't have to feel shame about it. You don't have to feel bad about it. None of that, okay? It is your right. It is your God-given right to do that, to protect your heart. protect the things that are close to you, that are of God. Um, so yeah, had I not went through this, and one thing I'll tell you this, I knew that I was gonna be successful in this area because I had gave it to God. I made a vow to God, and I was really sincere about it, and I asked God to help me with it because I know this vow that I made, I knew that I wasn't gonna be able to do it myself. So, um, yeah, but during this, like I said, during this wilderness time, it showed me how to react during times of hardship, and how to keep my faith aligned and keep my mindset, and to what to repeat. You need that word, you need that bread of life to like give you confirmation. Just like Jesus was on the mount. What he did, he showed us by actually living it out. He lived it out, and he said, "It is written." Everything he made a rebuttal, about what the devil was trying to get him to do. He quoted it out of what was already law. It is written. We have laws that govern everything. So when you come across this, um, if your father is rich in houses and in land, how can you lack for anything? If the Lord is your shepherd and you should not want, okay, how's that even? How can that be? How can you lack anything? I will tell you this. Another thing, like you have to change your mindset. It changed my mindset. How, um, and this was so funny. I got it on a recording. I forgot which recording I have it on because I made quite a few videos. But I remember when I was going through homelessness the second time. I said the second, no, the third time. And the third time I went through it is because I was just like, I would rather break my neck trying to get something that is for me, and work on myself being successful and fail than to try to deal with somebody else's laws and ways of me and then not be able to succeed. So, what happened? Oh yeah, so I was like, how in the world can if my father is rich in houses and in land, I could never be homeless. Like, that sounds unlawful. How can your kid be homeless unless he rebukes or he refuses? That's just like the two brothers in the Bible who had the land, and one says, "Give me my inheritance." He didn't lack. The only reason that he didn't have a house is because he left the house. Other than that, he still had a house. He still had a home. He was living with vegetables and living like a homeless person, but that's because he rebuked and he refused the house that he had. So if you didn't refuse the house, now if you refuse the house, you got to go rebuttal and you have to repent and turn away and go back. But he refused the house and he repented. He turned back and he regained everything. He regained honor back. Uh yeah. Yeah, so that's what I had learned, what I went through with that whole thing today. It was just so much confirmation um going to church today, and it was so crazy that it even happened that way because while I was trying to go to church, it was so much stuff pushing me back, and I felt so tired. And I knew, like, I'm already at the finish line. I am at the finish line. God has just been telling